Behind the glitter of reality television, secrets often hide in the shadows. 90 Day Fiancé has shown viewers dramatic breakups, shocking confessions, and unbelievable twists. But the story of Adnan Fata and Tijuli Taylor may be one of the darkest yet. According to confidential sources, this relationship was torn apart by a secret gambling addiction, nearly $600,000 in debt, religious pressure, betrayal, and finally a prison sentence that shattered their marriage. Yes, that is correct. Sources claim Adnan became trapped in almost $600,000 of debt through online gambling platforms. At the same time, Adnan repeatedly pressured his wife, Tigerlily Taylor, to convert to Islam. He also pushed her to help pay off his massive hidden debt. When Adnan failed to repay what he owed, a lawsuit was filed against him. He was later arrested, and according to the court's verdict, sentenced to 6 months in prison. Under constant emotional pressure and overwhelmed by the situation, Tigerlily Taylor eventually had no choice but to divorce him. Later, she moved forward with her life and became engaged to a man named Cody. This is the untold story of how love, faith, and money collided, destroying one relationship and leading to a new beginning no one expected. To understand this story, it's important to know who these two people were before everything fell apart. Tigerlily Taylor was not just another face in London's social scene. With her elegant style and quiet confidence, she carried herself like someone who had experienced both privilege and hardship. She was a model, a free spirit, and the daughter of music royalty. Her life had always been far from ordinary. Adnan Fata came from a very different world. Raised with strict traditions, he was ambitious and driven, but constantly searching for validation. On 90 Day Fiancé, viewers saw him as mysterious but also controlling. Many believed their relationship wouldn't last. In the beginning, however, it felt almost like a fairy tale. They met at a private event in Dubai through mutual friends. Adnan was instantly drawn to Tigerlily's presence. He admired her independence, her Western upbringing, and the way she challenged him. These were things he was not used to. Tigerlily, on the other hand, was drawn to Adnan's quiet confidence and exotic charm. Later, she admitted that he made her feel like the only person in the room. For months, their romance flourished. They traveled together through Paris and Istanbul. Their social media was filled with happy photos. Adnan showered her with gifts, spoke passionately about their future, and promised a life together. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. What Tigerlily didn't know, and what the cameras never showed, was that Adnan had been fighting a private battle long before she entered his life. Adnan had always been fascinated by risk. In his early 20s, while living abroad, he discovered online poker. He loved the excitement, the rush, and the idea that one good hand could change everything. At first, he played casually and won small amounts. Those early wins gave him confidence. Soon, casual poker wasn't enough. He moved into online casinos, high-stakes sports betting, and digital roulette. Gambling was available 24 hours a day, always just one click away. For every small win, there were devastating losses. By the time he met Tigerlily, Adnan was already tens of thousands of dollars in debt. He hid it well. He borrowed money quietly, moved funds between accounts, and maintained the image of a wealthy, generous man. When Tigerlily asked about money, Adnan kept his answers vague. He mentioned business deals or investments. In reality, his debt was growing rapidly. What began as $10,000 turned into $100,000, and within 2 years, ballooned to nearly $600,000. Outwardly, Adnan lived like a man with endless resources. 5-star hotels, luxury dinners, expensive gifts, and first-class flights. But behind closed doors, he was desperate. He had taken secret loans from banks and private lenders, some with dangerous reputations. Late at night, while Tigerlily slept, Adnan sat in front of his laptop placing reckless bets, hoping to win everything back. Each loss tightened the trap around him. Tigerlily wasn't blind to the changes. She noticed his stress, his hands shaking while checking his phone, his temper growing shorter, his frequent late nights. One night, unable to sleep, she found him awake at 3 a.m., staring at a gambling website. His face was pale and exhausted. When he noticed her, he slammed the laptop shut and claimed it was work. But the feeling in her chest didn't go away. As the debt grew, Adnan became more controlling and anxious. Fear of exposure followed him constantly. He clung to Tigerlily, believing her loyalty could protect him. During one argument, he told her, "I need you to trust me, no matter what." Confused but still in love, Tigerlily stood by him. She wanted to believe in the man she married. Religion soon became another source of tension. Faith had always been central to Adnan's life. Tigerlily respected religion but came from a liberal, Western background where personal freedom mattered deeply. At first, Adnan admired her independence, but as pressure mounted, his religious expectations grew stricter. He began telling her how to dress and behave. One night, he told her she should dress more modestly. When she reminded him that she hadn't changed, he replied that she needed to. What started as a suggestion slowly became a demand. Behind his growing devotion was a man unraveling under debt, fear, and desperation. And this was only the beginning of how everything would fall apart. Adnan's motives were far more complicated than they appeared. The crushing weight of nearly $600,000 in gambling debt left him feeling powerless, as if his life was spinning out of control. The independence that once attracted him to Tigerlily now made him deeply insecure. By pushing her to convert, Adnan was not only thinking about faith, he was trying to regain control. In his mind, if she followed his religion, she would stay. She wouldn't leave him when the truth finally came out. So the pressure became constant. He brought up religion during meals. He left books about conversion on the nightstand. He asked her questions that felt more like accusations than love. "Why won't you do this for me?" he would say. "Don't you love me enough?" For Tigerlily, the pressure became overwhelming. Arguments happened more often. "Why can't you accept me as I am?" she cried. "Why don't you respect my beliefs?" Adnan would snap back, but behind his harsh tone was fear. He was terrified that Tigerlily, with her confidence and growing doubts, would eventually walk away. Instead of being honest about his gambling debt, Adnan tried to anchor her with religion. But the harder he pushed, the more distant she became. Privately, Tigerlily struggled. She loved her husband, but she felt trapped. She spoke to close friends, who warned her gently. Faith should be a choice, not something forced. One friend told her, "If he can't love you without changing you, maybe he doesn't truly love you." Still, Tigerlily wanted to believe their marriage could survive. She made small compromises. She attended religious events with him. She dressed more modestly at times. She sat quietly during his prayers. But none of it was ever enough for Adnan. One night, exhausted and emotionally drained, she whispered, "Adnan, you're losing me. If you keep forcing me, I don't know how much longer I can stay." Her words hit him hard, but instead of softening, he became colder. By now, two storms were colliding. One was the secret $600,000 gambling debt, ticking like a time bomb. The other was the constant pressure on Tigerlily to convert, meant to keep her tied to him. What Adnan didn't realize was that both were pushing her away. Tigerlily began to feel like a prisoner. Her freedom, her choices, and her beliefs were slowly being taken from her. And soon, the secret he had been hiding would finally come into the open. Secrets have a way of surfacing. No matter how deeply buried they are, they eventually find the light. For months, Adnan had balanced lies, excuses, and sleepless nights trying to hide his gambling losses. But the cracks in his story were becoming impossible to ignore. Tigerlily, observant and intuitive, started putting the pieces together. It began with strange phone calls late at night. Adnan would step outside, speaking quickly in Arabic. When she asked who it was, he brushed it off as business. But the tension in his face told her otherwise. One night after another late call, Tigerlily noticed his hands shaking as he put his phone away. She touched his arm gently and asked, "Adnan, what's going on?" He snapped back sharply. "I told you it's business. Don't ask again." The sudden anger stunned her. Deep down, she knew something was terribly wrong. The truth came weeks later. While checking the mail, Tigerlily found a thick envelope addressed to Adnan. She placed it on the table and waited for him to open it. He avoided it all evening. When he went to take a shower, curiosity and fear took over. She opened the envelope. Inside were bank statements, page after page of transactions, online casino deposits in the thousands, betting platform charges, overdue loan payments, and at the bottom, the total balance due, $598,742.19. Tigerlily froze. Her hands shook as she stared at the number. $600,000, she whispered, barely able to breathe. When Adnan came out of the bathroom, he saw the papers spread across the table. His face went pale. Tigerlily stood there, eyes filled with shock and betrayal. "Tell me this isn't true," she demanded. He tried to speak, but his voice broke. "Don't lie," she said firmly. $600,000, Adnan. Gambling loans. Is this who you really are? He reached for the papers, but she pulled them away. "I trusted you," she cried. "You lied to me while drowning us in debt." Adnan buried his face in his hands. He admitted he thought one big win would fix everything. He didn't want to lose her. Tigerlily looked at him quietly and said, "You lost me the moment you chose lies over honesty." That night marked the breaking point. The man she loved was gone. In his place stood someone consumed by addiction, debt, and desperation. The days that followed were unbearable. Adnan begged for forgiveness one moment and lashed out in anger the next. He promised he would repay everything and stop gambling forever. But the promises felt empty. At one point, he even blamed her. "If you trusted me more, I wouldn't have had to hide this," he said. Tigerlily stood firm. "Don't blame me for your choices. This is your mistake, not mine." Soon, debt collectors appeared. Letters arrived. Phones rang nonstop. Lawsuit threats followed. Adnan made desperate calls, begging friends and lenders for help. But his reputation was already damaged. One evening, a man in a dark suit arrived at their door and handed Adnan official court documents. A lawsuit had been filed. He had defaulted on his loans. The stress destroyed what remained of their marriage. Meals were skipped. Nights passed in silence. Tigerlily moved into a separate room. She called her mother in tears, admitting she didn't recognize her husband anymore. Her mother told her gently, "Love doesn't mean destroying yourself for someone else's mistakes." For the first time, Tigerlily understood that her future might not include Adnan. The final moment came during another argument. Adnan admitted he couldn't repay the debt. "They're going to take everything," he said. Desperate, he looked at her and said, "You can help me. You have money. Your family has money. If you love me, you'll save me." Tigerlily went cold. "You lied to me, pressured me to change who I am, and buried me in your mess," she said through tears. "I won't save you anymore." The truth was out. The marriage was broken. The $600,000 debt was not just financial. It was the final blow. For Adnan, the lawsuit was only the beginning. For Tigerlily, it was the moment she chose to walk away. In the days that followed, Tigerlily began to take back control of her life. She packed her belongings quietly, making sure to keep anything that reminded her of the happy moments with Adnan separate from the things tied to the betrayal. Every item she touched reminded her of what could have been, but also of the lies, the stress, and the pressure that had almost destroyed her. Adnan tried to reach her. He sent messages, emails, and even tried to call. "Please, Tigerlily, don't leave me," he wrote one night. "I'll fix everything. I promise." But the words had lost all power. She had seen the truth, lived with the anxiety, and felt the emotional weight of his decisions. Promises alone could not repair months of lies and manipulation. Her family supported her. They reminded her that she deserved peace, honesty, and love without conditions. Her mother visited her, holding her hand and saying, "Tigerlily, you are not responsible for his choices. You are not the person who owes him anything. Take your life back." Finally, the moment came when Tigerlily told Adnan that she was leaving. He tried to argue, to convince her that their love could survive the debts, the pressure, and the lawsuits. "I know I made mistakes," he pleaded, "but we can get through this. I need you." Tigerlily shook her head, tears rolling down her cheeks. "You needed me to be someone I'm not," she said softly but firmly. "You needed me to fix your life and your mistakes, and I can't do that. I won't be trapped anymore. This is the end, Adnan." She left his apartment that evening. Every step she took away from him felt like a step toward freedom. It was painful, yes, but also relieving. For the first time in months, she could breathe without anxiety, without fear of late-night calls or sudden arguments about faith or money. Adnan stayed behind, staring at the empty apartment, the bills stacked on the table, and the emails from debt collectors flashing on his screen. The reality of his situation finally hit him. He had lost not only money and reputation, but also the person he loved most. The weight of $600,000 debt felt heavier than ever now, because it had cost him everything that truly mattered. The lawsuit moved forward quickly. Adnan had to appear in court, facing not only financial penalties, but also the public humiliation that came with a high-profile legal case. The courtroom was cold and unwelcoming. Judges and lawyers asked direct questions about his gambling, the debts, and his attempts to hide the truth. He struggled to answer, the tension visible on his face. Meanwhile, Tigerlily tried to rebuild her life. She moved into a smaller apartment, focusing on her work and reconnecting with friends and family who had been distant while she was caught up in the marriage. Every day was a challenge, but each day also reminded her that she was free to make her own choices. In private, she reflected on what she had learned. The experience with Adnan taught her that love cannot thrive when trust is broken, and that no amount of charm, gifts, or promises can replace honesty. She realized that sometimes leaving is not a failure, it is survival. As weeks turned into months, Tigerlily began to feel more like herself again. She traveled for work, attended family gatherings, and even started seeing new people in a casual, non-committal way. But she was careful. She had learned the dangers of rushing, of ignoring red flags, and of sacrificing her own identity for someone else's mistakes that Adnan's world, however, continued to collapse. The public lawsuit left a stain on his reputation. Friends and acquaintances who had once admired him now avoided him. Business partners questioned his integrity. And the debts, most of which could not be immediately repaid, haunted him day and night. In prison, he had time to think. The first weeks were the hardest. He replayed every choice, every lie, every moment of control and manipulation, and realized that his actions had driven away the one person who truly loved him. But prison also gave him perspective. He began to understand that his obsession with control, his gambling, and his inability to be honest had caused his downfall. Tigerlily, on the other hand, continued her journey quietly. She met someone new named Cody, a man who respected her independence and never pressured her to change. It was not a whirlwind romance, but a slow, steady rebuilding of trust, love, and mutual respect. Cody helped her see that love could exist without fear or manipulation. Over time, she began to speak publicly about her experience, carefully choosing words that could educate others about the dangers of secret debt, gambling addiction, and coercion in relationships. She wanted people to understand that manipulation disguised as love could be just as damaging as financial ruin. Adnan, meanwhile, faced not only legal consequences, but also the personal consequences of his actions. The courtroom verdicts were clear. He was sentenced to 6 months in prison for fraud and failure to repay his debts. It was a short sentence, but it symbolized the end of one chapter and the start of reflection and accountability. When he left prison, he attempted to contact Tigerlily, hoping for reconciliation. But she remained firm. "I cannot trust you anymore," she said. "We had love once, but love cannot survive lies and control. I hope you learn from this and change, but I am building a life without you now." Tigerlily continued to flourish, finding freedom in independence and in choices that were truly her own. She rebuilt her reputation, her confidence, and her trust in people. Slowly, she began to understand that happiness does not come from someone else's approval, nor from wealth or status, but from living authentically. Adnan's story became a cautionary tale. Publicly, people whispered about the $600,000 debt, the pressure on faith, and the collapse of a high-profile marriage. Privately, he faced the guilt of losing Tigerlily and the realization that every lie, every gamble, and every attempt to control had cost him more than money. It had cost him the woman he loved and his own freedom. Years later, Tigerlily reflected on her experience. She had survived one of the most painful chapters of her life and had come out stronger. She understood now that love should never come at the cost of your identity or peace of mind. She had learned that freedom, honesty, and self-respect were the true foundations of any lasting relationship. And as for Adnan, he remained a reminder that unchecked addiction, lies, and the desire for control can destroy even the most promising relationships. His story would be told in interviews, reality shows, and social media posts as a warning. The cost of deception is far greater than the cost of truth. Tigerlily's life moved forward with Cody, full of promise and hope. She had lost a husband, yes, but she had gained something much more important, herself. And in that recovery, she discovered that endings, though painful, can lead to beginnings that are brighter than anyone could imagine. In the end, the story of Adnan Abdel Fata and Tigerlily Taylor is not just about gambling, debt, or religion. It is about trust and betrayal, pressure and freedom, and ultimately, the courage to walk away from destruction in order to rebuild a life filled with honesty, respect, and love.